associated organs. State the function of the following enzymes in terms of where in the alimentary canal amylase, protease and lipase is secreted. Then state and explain the function of the hydrochloric acid and pepsin in gastric juice. Describe pepsin and trypsin as two protease enzymes that function in different parts of the alimentary canal. Outline the role of bile in neutralizing the acidic mixture chyme in emulsifying fat. Describe the structure of villus and explain the significance of villi and microvilli. Describe the roles of capillaries and lacteals in villi. So, these outcomes I hope you would be able to at least grasp half of it by the end of the lesson. So, to begin with the lesson, first of all let us start with the types of teeth, because we first put food inside our mouth. So, let us go through the types of teeth. There are 4 types of teeth, as you can see. These are canines, incisors, molars, premolars, and incisors is the first thing what you can see when you smile, right. These are just used for biting the food, it is not used for chewing or any, it just biting the food. We have 2 incisors in each quarter of our mouth, you can see these 2 are incisors. Then next to the incisors we have canines. Canines are mainly for tearing the food. When we are eating meat or chicken, we tear our food, so we use canines. And then we have 2 premolars in each quarter of our tooth. Normally these will have 2 cusps and they are single rooted. Mainly the function of premolars and molars is the same, that is used for grinding and crushing. Finally, we have 3 molars in each of these quarter, and this is also used for grinding and crushing the food, and we have 4 cusps and these are double rooted. And let us go through a tooth in detail. How does a tooth look? So, tooth is divided into 2 parts, which is the crown and the root. What we can see basically outside is the crown part, and then the white part that we all can see is the enamel. Enamel is made up of calcium soles, and the main function of enamel is to protect the internal structures of the leaf, which is internal structure of the tooth, which is the dentine and the pulp. Dentine is softer than enamel. It also have some cytoplasm streaks running around, and it also protects the pulp, and pulp is where all the blood capillaries and the nerve endings start. So, if you have toothache, that means the cavity has reached your pulp, and then we have cement or cementum, which protects the dentine and holds the tooth in its own socket. Now, we have known the 4 types of teeth. What are the 4 types of teeth we are talking about? That is the incisors, canines, premolars and molars, and we know the structure of the teeth. So, teeth we need to take care of it, otherwise it can decay. So, let us go through the decay process. So, looking at this diagram here, so for teeth it is very bad, this food which contains lot of carbonated drinks and sugar. So, bacteria is the microorganism which is causing all these problems. So, let us go through. Particles of food is stuck in between. So, when we eat food, we know some of our food particles are stuck in between our tooth, especially sugary food. And this food we call it as the plaque, which is right around the tartar, which is forming around the teeth, and bacteria is living on these will be feeding on the sugar and producing acids. You must have observed, if you go to sleep without brushing in the night, when you get up in the morning you find your mouth sour. That is because these acids are produced by the bacteria, and bacteria dissolves the enamel, the white part of our tooth, what we can see, the hard part, forms a hole, and that hole again will be there, more sugar can deposit on it, and then once the sugar deposits on it, the bacteria feeds on it again and again, and then increases the size of the cavity. So, once the enamel is damaged, then slowly it will move into the dentine, and then it reaches the pulp cavity, and once it reaches the pulp cavity we have pain, and that is the time you know your tooth is decayed. Then that can spread throughout the gums, and it can form abscess around your gums. To avoid tooth decay, we need to take proper care of our teeth. Teeth is very important. At young age we do not bother, but as our age goes on, this decay can continue. So, we need to take care of our teeth right from day 1 till the end. So, do not eat sweet or starchy food in between meals, because normally when we eat food in between our meals, we do not go home and brush our teeth even at school during the interval time. So, when we eat the sugary food, it sticks into the tooth and saliva stops flowing, right. When you are sleeping in the night, you can see the mouth is dry, that means saliva stops flowing. Daytime the saliva keeps flowing, so the sugar can be washed out. But at night when you are sleeping, your mouth is dry and it is providing a suitable place for the bacteria to grow. So, bacteria grows on it. So, therefore, avoid eating before going to bed, then brush teeth last thing in the night and first thing in the morning. When you are brushing, we must be very careful to remove the plaque. Plaque consists of, what do plaque consist of? Earlier I have discussed, it consists of sugar, food particles and bacteria. Then use dental floss regularly to remove the food stuck between the tooth. Now, use a toothpaste. While buying a toothpaste, these are the things we should see. First, number 1, fluoride. It should contain fluoride to strengthen the tooth, enamel and resist tooth bacteria, tooth decay. Second one, bacteria side, we need, side means to kill. Bacteria is to kill the bacteria, and we should also, it should be also be having alkaline to neutralize the acid which releases by the bacteria, and we should visit the dentist regularly in order to check up. So, if there is any dental decay, the doctors can attend to it immediately. Now, having said we have discussed about the tooth, let us go through the parts of the alimentary canal. Now, from this diagram also you can see the alimentary canal is very long, right from our mouth up to the anus, only the limbs are left behind. You must be wondering why is it so long. So, let us go through the first part of the alimentary canal. We start with the mouth. In the mouth we have the teeth which I was talking about, which helps in grinding the food. Then once the food is swallowed, we go through a tube. This tube is called as esophagus, which is a powerful muscular tube, and then the food goes into the stomach. Stomach is also a bag where digestion takes place, and then from the stomach it will go to the first part of the intestine, which we call as the duodenum. From the duodenum, after digestion is completed, then the food will move into the ileum. You can see this ileum is highly folded. It is about 7 meters long in our body. That is why the digestive system is very, very long. Then once the final digestion takes place in the ileum and absorption, the remaining undigested food moves into the large intestine, where first part of the large intestine we call as the colon. There is also function of it, later I will come to that, and from the colon it will go into the rectum, and then we will be expelling through the anus. So, to sum up with the digestive system, the parts of it, we have the mouth, the esophagus, stomach with associated 2 organs with pancreas and liver, duodenum, ileum, large intestine and then anus. What are the stages of digestion? There are basically 5 stages of digestion. Number 1 is ingestion. Ingestion is the act of taking food in our mouth. The minute we put food into our mouth, we call as ingestion. And then second one is digestion. There are 2 types of digestion taking place. One is mechanical digestion, the other one is chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion, we are talking physical, that is with the help of the teeth we grind the food, but it is not soluble. We cannot diffuse that, but it only helps for the enzymes to work efficiently because it is broken down into simpler substances. Then we have the chemical digestion. Chemical digestion is with the help of the enzymes. So, there are enzymes in the mouth, in the stomach, duodenum and ileum. So, with the help of these enzymes, this food is broken down into simple, soluble and diffusible products. Then finally, it is absorption. Now, absorption takes place in the ileum. So, once the food is broken down into a simplest form, it is absorbed into our body. Then comes assimilation. Assimilation is where the body is using the absorbed drugs. For example, if glucose is absorbed into our body, what is the use of this glucose? So, glucose is used for respiration. So, that is assimilation. And finally, it is egestion. Egestion is removal of undigested materials. Most of the time students confuse with excretory products and egestion. Egestion is the removal of undigested materials. It is not a chemical waste. Now, to begin with, how does food move along alimentary canal? So, we start with movement of food in the esophagus. So, once the food is chewed and then we swallow it, while we are swallowing it, there are two tubes in our system. One is a trachea which goes into the respiratory tract, the other one is the esophagus which goes into the stomach. So, as we swallow the epiglottis, there is a flap which will close in the respiratory tract. Otherwise, what will happen? The food will go into a respiratory tract, we can get choked. So, while we eating, sometimes we start choking or coughing, because that means the food is going into the respiratory tract. So, to avoid that, there is epiglottis which close it and the food enters into esophagus. Esophagus is a tube from mouth to the stomach. So, here we have esophagus contains two types of muscles. They are circular muscles and longitudinal muscles. As the food is swallowed, the circular muscles will contract and the longitudinal muscles will relax, and then the food is pushed. The food is pushed in a peristaltic movement which we call as a rhythmic movement, where two muscles work together. One muscle will contract, the other muscle will relax. This is called as antagonistic muscles, because it works together and the food is pushed down through the esophagus into the stomach. So, while reaching the stomach, as soon as it reaches the stomach also contains some of the sphincter muscles. So, these muscles will relax and the food enters into the stomach. So, we start with digestion. Now, so digestion, chemical digestion and physical digestion together we will go on. Digestion starts in the mouth. In the mouth we have salivary glands. Salivary glands produces saliva. Saliva contains mucin, water and amylase. Mucin helps to stick all the food particles together, and water moistens the food particles, and salivary amylase converts starch to maltose. So, only in the mouth starch digestion begins. The other two classes of food remains inside. Then from there, by peristalsis the food will move into the stomach. Now, in the stomach is a muscular bag. They have strong walls, and in the walls they have gastric glands. Gastric glands produces gastric juice. Gastric juice contains hydrochloric acid, enzyme pepsin, which is a protein digesting enzyme, and it also contains renin. So, hydrochloric acid will kill some of the microbes which enters along with the food, and pepsin is activated with the help of hydrochloric acid, because pepsin is an enzyme which needs an acidic medium for it to work, and renin will curdle the milk. So, pepsin will convert proteins into polypeptides. So, students, in the stomach protein digestion begins, in the mouth starch digestion begins. Now, the food is churned with the help of the powerful muscular walls, and this is a physical digestion or mechanical digestion. So, this food will be turned into a creamy substance called as chyme. Now, the chyme is ready to depart from the stomach into the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine, and once it enters here, there are two associated organs as I have discussed earlier. One is the liver, the other one is the pancreas. Liver produces bile. Bile contains bile salts and bile pigments. Now, remember, bile does not produce any enzymes. This is also a common error many students they make. Bile does not contain any enzymes. Bile contains bile salts and bile pigments. Bile pigments are made when the red blood cells are broken down and it is excreted from the body, whereas bile salts will emulsify fat. What is emulsification? Emulsifying is breaking down large fat molecules into simple substances, but that is also not diffusible. So, here it is making the enzymes to work it efficiently. So, it is breaking down into simple substances. That is what is bile doing. Plus, it also contains some of the alkali materials, because the food which is coming from the stomach, which we call as chyme, is acidic. Now, the enzymes in the duodenum, they need an alkali medium. Previous lesson, the last episode, we were talking about enzymes. Enzymes are sensitive to pH. So, here the pH should be alkaline. So, with the bile it helps to alkaline. In the meantime, the pancreas, the leaf-like organ, they also produces a pancreatic juice which contains alkali materials, plus it contains pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase and trypsin, which is a protein digesting enzyme. So, earlier we said like trypsin and pepsin, although they both are protein digesting enzymes, since they are sensitive to pH, they need a particular pH. So, here in the duodenum, now the acidic chyme is neutralized and amylase will convert starch to maltose, and lipids will be converted by lipase into fatty acids and glycerol, and trypsin will convert polypeptides into peptides. So, up to this, starch digestion begins in the mouth, protein digestion begins in the stomach, and fat digestion begins in the duodenum, and all the three classes of food starts in the duodenum, it continues. Then from here it enters into the ileum. Ileum is highly folded, and this is where the final digestion takes place. So, in the ileum, the walls of the ileum, the villi, they have cells which produce a series of enzymes. For example, now it is broken down, the starch is broken down to maltose. Maltose is also still a sugar which cannot be absorbed. So, this further it has to be broken down. So, there are enzymes which we call as maltase. Maltase will break down maltose to glucose. Glucose is the simplest form of carbohydrate which should be absorbed into our body through the ileum. Now, the remaining fats are also been broken down into fatty acids and glycerol with the help of lipase, and even in the ileum there is peptidase or erepsin, they break down peptides into amino acids. So, this is the simplest form. So, in the digestion, finally a carbohydrate, the rice what you eat, it becomes a glucose. The meat what you eat, it becomes an amino acids, and the fat what you eat, it becomes a fatty acids and glycerol. These are simple, soluble and diffusible. These three keywords are very important while you are talking about digestion. Now, once it is digested, let us go through how is it absorbed into our body. It is absorbed in the ileum. The ileum is surrounded by one cell thick epithelial cells and around by a dense network of blood capillaries, you can see. Then inside we have the lymph vessels or the lectile. The glucose and the amino acids should be absorbed only into the blood capillaries by active transport. Only glucose and amino acids will be absorbed into the blood capillaries, and this is transported by the hepatic portal vein to the liver. In the liver, glucose is converted to glycogen and stored in the body. The proteins we do not use, we do not store the proteins. So, whatever proteins we needed for muscle building or proteins we will be using, and the remaining proteins are broken down in the liver as urea, and it is excreted from our body. In the meantime, the fats that is fatty acids and glycerol is absorbed into the lectile, and this is transported in the lymphatic system and stored in the adipose tissue. Now, the food is digested, it is absorbed. What happens to the remaining food which is not digested? What does this undigested food contains basically? It contains some of the ions, some water and the fiber. Whenever we eat plant material, the cell walls are made up of cellulose. We do not have the enzyme cellulase, so we cannot digest it. So, the remaining undigested food will pass into the first part of the large intestine, which we call it as colon. Colon absorbs some of the water and mineral salts. The remaining food will be passed back into the rectum, and it stays there temporarily, and then finally it is expelled or digested by the anus. According to the meme also, they says here, well, put this way, semicolon is better than a full stop, because if we cannot pass on feces, we cannot stay back alive. So, I will just a reflection just to go through how much you have absorbed. I know quite a bit I have spoken about. So, let us go through. Where does starch, protein and fat digestion occur? Repeatedly I was repeating it because these are examination areas where they will be testing. Where does starch, protein and fat digestion occur? Name the enzymes which break down starch, proteins and fats. So, I have given the answers here. Starch digestion begins in the mouth, it continued in the duodenum and ileum. Protein digestion begins in the stomach, duodenum and ileum. Fat digestion begins in the duodenum and ileum. And this is how enzymes work. Salivary amylase converts starch to maltose, and with the help of maltase enzyme, maltose is converted to glucose, which is a diffusible form and the simplest form of carbohydrate. Likewise, proteins, with the help of peptins, it is converted to polypeptides. Trypsin will convert polypeptides into peptides, and erepsin or peptidase will convert peptides into amino acids. And for lipids, it is a lipase which converts fats into fatty acids and glycerol. So, for lipids, it is only one enzyme. Then just to go for a quick review, bile and large intestine we are talking about. What are the contents of bile? What are the function of bile? What is the function of large intestine? The contents of bile is bile salts and bile pigments. And what is the function of it? It is to neutralize the acid chyme and to emulsify fat, and bile pigment is excreted from the body. What is the main function of colon? Colon absorbs water, salts, vitamins from the indigested material it receives from the ileum. Now, I will give you another task. This is called as guided fantasy. Now, I have written this story. So, you students, what you have to do is you have to deep breathe, close your eyes, and then take part in this journey just to go through. So, do not open your eyes till I finish my story. I will only take about 4 to 5 minutes, not more than that, I promise. So, please close your eyes, deep breathe, and be a part of the journey. One fine Sunday morning, I was taking a nap when I felt a hard grip on my body. My shiny, creamy body was tightened with monstrous hand of an evil man. I have heard many stories of these evil creatures who love killing innocent creatures like us to fill their belly. At that very moment, I knew the fate of my life. I knew I was going to be crushed and crunched in 4 different stages. Within no time, I was taken into the gigantic mouth of the creature, which had 2 sets of white sharp fangs. I was bitten, teared, and grinded by those extreme sharp fangs. Ouch! It was so disgusting and awful. I was drenched with saliva produced in the salivary gland of the creature. I was kept intact and moist by creature's mucin and water, while the amylase converted starch to maltose. This is not the end. Its enormous tongue was all over and rolled me into a bolus and was swallowed and moved down by peristalsis through a tube called gullet or esophagus into the deep cave like stomach. By now, my strength has diminished to a level where I was left with no choice but to lay still to be macerated within the powerful walls of the stomach. I still hoped that a superhero would rise up and save me before the stomach turns me into a creamy substance which you call chyme. But I knew deep down that these are better in stories, not in real life. I was about to be pushed far down into a cave to the first part of the small intestine, namely duodenum. Oh no, I have forgotten the most important part. I hope you will not mind. I am in so much pain that I keep forgetting. Before I was sent down, the highly acidic gastric juice containing hydrochloric acid produced by the gastric glands in the walls of the stomach kills the microbes which enters with me and activates enzyme pepsin, which converts proteins into polypeptides. I could not see anything. It was dark and scary. Alas, I was helpless and exhausted in the skinny tube of the small intestine, duodenum. I am too tired to continue, but for the sake of you, I will. Bile stored in the gallbladder, which is produced in the liver, is poured down like rain into the duodenum. At the same time, showering of pancreatic juice having amylase, protease, and lipase produced in pancreas continued to destroying me. The bile which I was talking about consists of bile salts, emulsifies all the fat in me and neutralizes in the acid chyme, which is my present state now. You must be enjoying seeing all these sufferings of me. For you, it may be exciting to hear that amylase converting starch into maltose, pepsin converting polypeptides into peptides, and lipase converting fats into fatty acids and glycerol. I have feelings too. Think of the pain that I am going through. Stop laughing and pray for me before I am sent to the small intestine, namely the ileum, to take away the remaining few breaths left in me. I don't even know who I am anymore. I can't even seem to remember myself. I was this tasty, cheesy, colorful, proud burger. Look at me now. Look at me. It's better to die than living in this state. I am ready to be fully digested in the ileum. Enzymes remaining in the cells of the villi secretes series of enzymes like maltase converting maltose to glucose, peptidase converting peptides to amino acids, lipase converting lipids to fatty acids, and glycerol. Ileum absorbs all the glucose and amino acids into the capillaries of the villi and transported by the blood in the body, while the fatty acids and glycerols are absorbed by the lacteal in the villi and transported in the lymphatic system. Now, you may be wondering what happened to the parts which is not digested of me. I was pushed down to the colon, the part of the large intestine, and squeezed to absorb the last bit of water and ions left in me. It was so embarrassing and miserable to be ejected as feces and see my pride getting crushed. Now, that is my story I have written. It is very difficult for students to learn the facts. So, it is always better for you to make a story, a guided fence or poem, any of those. So, that way you can help you to learn the content. So, before we close down for the day, you work while you are at home, read and make short notes from IGCSE course book, page number 80 and 87, and do the questions from the IGCSE workbook 47 to 49. And let us show your creativity. I am sure you are more creative than me. So, take your own favorite food. You can take a pizza, burger, submarine, any of those. Write the stages of it from the time it enters to your mouth and break it down till it absorbs into your body, how the undigested part of it removed. Good use of vocabulary is important, so you can remember the whole process of digestion in an interesting manner. Archive your masterpiece for your future generations. You can upload your fantastic work in the medium. And just before closing down, I have taken this from the internet. Even you can make poems like this for you to remember the process of digestion. This is an important part of your syllabus. And that is all for the lesson from now. Thank you and have a good day. Hope to see you again.